In 1961, Coca-Cola executives laughed at Pepsi openly, publicly. They called it the poor man's Coke, a cheap knockoff for people who could not afford the real thing. Nobody was proud to be seen with it. Pepsi was not a rival. Pepsi was a joke. That was the most expensive mistake in beverage history. Because while Coca-Cola was laughing, Pepsi was watching, waiting, building something that would one day make the most powerful brand in the world publicly destroy its own century-old formula in a panic. This is the story of how Pepsi went from bankrupt nobody to $250 billion empire. Pepsi was born in 1893 in the back of a North Carolina pharmacy. A pharmacist named Caleb Bradham mixed carbonated water, sugar, and spices and called it Brad's drink. He renamed it Pepsi Cola, built a small business, and started selling franchise rights across America. Then World War I broke everything, sugar prices exploded, Bradham gambled and lost everything. In 1923, Pepsi went completely bankrupt. Coca-Cola was offered the chance to buy Pepsi. They said no, not worth their time. They would regret that forever. The brand bounced between owners until 1931 when a candy maker named Charles Goth bought it out of pure spite. Coca-Cola had refused him a bulk discount, so he bought their rival to hurt them. Spite turned out to be an extraordinary business motivator. Goth needed an edge. Coke sold 6.5-ounce bottles for 5 cents. Goth sold 12-ounce bottles for 5 cents. Twice the drink, same price. In the middle of the Great Depression, this was not clever marketing. It was a weapon. Working-class Americans chose Pepsi because they got more. Sales exploded. Pepsi went from the edge of death to genuine competitor almost overnight. But through the 1940s and 1950s, Coke was still untouchable. During World War II, Coca-Cola made sure every American soldier overseas could buy a Coke for 5 cents. Those soldiers came home and gave their children Coke. Coke was not just a drink, it was memory. It was American identity itself. Pepsi was still second. Then Donald Kendall became CEO in 1963 and changed everything. Coke owned the older generation completely. Fighting them for those customers was a war Pepsi could not win. So Kendall stopped trying. He went after the customers Coke had completely ignored. Young people, the baby boomer generation, the largest demographic in American history, defined by rejecting everything their parents stood for. He called it the Pepsi generation. Ads showing teenagers running, laughing, dancing, living freely. The message underneath everything, never spoken, but impossible to miss. Coke is what your parents drink. Pepsi is what you drink. Coke responded by talking about heritage and tradition, which confirmed exactly what Pepsi was saying. Coke belongs to the past. Then in 1983, Pepsi signed Michael Jackson for $5 million. The most expensive celebrity endorsement in history at the time. The ad was not an advertisement, it was a cultural event. But the most devastating thing Pepsi ever did happened in shopping malls with paper cups, the Pepsi Challenge. 2 unmarked cups, 1 Pepsi, 1 Coke. Taste both, pick one. More people chose Pepsi. Pepsi filmed it and put it on television, not an ad, evidence. Coca-Cola ran their own internal tests to disprove it. Their own test showed the same result. The boardroom received this like a grenade. In 1985, after 99 years, Coca-Cola killed their original formula and replaced it with something sweeter. They called it New Coke. America lost its mind. People stockpiled original Coke. Protest groups formed. Thousands of furious letters flooded headquarters daily. People called the hotline and cried. A psychiatrist told Coca-Cola leadership that callers were grieving like they had lost a family member. 77 days later, Coca-Cola surrendered. They brought back the original and called it Coca-Cola Classic. Pepsi declared a company holiday, the greatest moment in Pepsi's history, achieved not by outspending Coke, but by handing people paper cups and letting the truth do the damage. But the real secret to Pepsi's size was happening quietly in the background. In 1965, they merged with Frito-Lay, acquiring Lay's, Doritos, and Cheetos. PepsiCo was born not a drink company anymore, a food and beverage empire. They bought Tropicana, they bought Quaker Oats, and got Gatorade brands across snacks, juices, and energy drinks in 200 countries. Today, more than half of PepsiCo's revenue comes from food, not cola, food. Pepsi changed what winning even means, from a bankrupt pharmacist's experiment in 1893 to a $250 billion empire today, always written off. Always underestimated, always finding another way through. Coca-Cola had every advantage: the history, the loyalty, the identity. Pepsi had one thing: they were never comfortable being second. The hungriest brand in the room is rarely the most powerful one at the start, but it is most powerful one at the end.